Welcome to Phase 1 of the Water Campaign. I'm Justin. I'm here with Dr. Mahsa Kazempour, Associate Professor of Science Education at Penn State Berks. During this phase, your team will develop your why statement. This statement explains who you are and why you're interested in reducing single-use plastics. In addition, this statement should have basic points from your research to solidify your argument. Dr. Kazempour conducts research and focuses on undergraduate students' level of environmental literacy and sense of social responsibility with respect to the environment at Penn State Berks. Her experience can help you all approach the first portion of the water campaign. Ready? Let's begin. Welcome, Dr. Kazempour.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us today.
Sure.
Wanted to begin, if you can tell us a little bit about your work with the community and your work with the students in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Sure. So I'm mainly the faculty involved with education students, as well as our environmental science classes, which are for anybody who wants to take environmental science. So I teach that. Majority of my time is spent teaching that, and I'm also the coordinator for sustainability education here on campus.
So let's dive into some of the questions here that we have for the students. The first one we ask is, in this campaign, we're asking students to create a why statement that describes why they're engaging in single-use plastic reduction. Where can students go to conduct research to build stronger arguments for their teams?
So as usual, you can always start with school or community library. That's always the best place to kind of get started to, start your research. But right now, there's a lot of stuff that you can find online. So you just have to be smart about it. You have to make sure that you find places which are kind of reputable sources to go to. So things like National Geographic, World Wildlife Fund, places that deal with it, and organizations that deal with these kinds of issues. And you know that the information that you find there are going to be accurate information.
Do you have a single-use plastic fact that just, blows your mind every time you think about it?
Just the amount of plastic, the fact that our drinking water is now contaminated with these small plastic particles. And recently I heard the news that it's even in the air particles. So not only is it in the water where we can say, okay, well, we can see the plastic kind of getting into the water, but now these really minute particles are in the air that we breathe, and that's just mind-blowing. So the amount of plastic use has just become really crazy, and it's taken for so long for us to realize how much we depend on plastic and how much we're throwing it away without even thinking where the away is. So there's so much numbers that are coming out recently. It's just mind-boggling. But any way you think about it, it's plastic everywhere. So plastic everywhere, and some people are not stopping to think about reducing that amount of plastic in the first place. So that's what I always talk about. When we're talking about with our students or local students, to think about those kinds of things.
Another question we had for you, as someone who conducts a lot of research, there must be many variables and facts that you have to keep track of over a long period of time. What are some good ways to keep track of your research and your facts so that you can present things in a very clear and concise manner?
Sure. So I'm assuming the students will be working in teams. So working in a team, you would need to figure out what's going to work best for you as a team. So stay organized, and that could mean something very different from one person to another. So if it means like keeping folders where you're keeping data and your thoughts and reflections, then that's great. If you can do it on the computer where everything is done electronically, again, keep everything organized. A lot of the times my students, when they're working in teams, I have them share, files and thoughts and reflections on, Google Drive, Google folder that they create, or on the campus, web management system. A way for them to just kind of pull things together, have things in a centralized location. So I would suggest to the students, find out something. Maybe you have Google Classroom, Google folder that you can share. Put everything together in one place, keep everything organized, put dates on things if that's important, like if you're writing down your ideas and thoughts and questions that you come up with. If you research about something, keep them in a local place, so then that way you can then sort through whatever it is that you have found out and you've written and you've communicated back and forth, and then that way try to then find a way to then communicate that with people. So whether it's posters like you see behind me where my students have done, or if you're doing an actual presentation using Prezi or PowerPoint or Google Slides, then you can pull that information together in a very meaningful way and be able to communicate that with people.
Great advice. That's great advice. Thank you. So back to really the single-use plastics and the issue that we discussed. There's so many ways that plastic can impact waterways specifically today. How can students decide which plastic issue is to focus on, which is most important to them?
I would say start, looking at themselves, looking at their family, look at their, what it is that they do on a normal, everyday kind of basis. What's the role of plastic in my own everyday life? When I wake up in the morning, how am I using plastic? Maybe do an audit of your own, lifestyle, the kinds of use that you have for plastic, as well as family audit, so you can start small, look at something very local. In your classrooms and your schools, you can also look at to see where plastic is actually playing a role. So if you go to the school cafeteria, we have that problem right here. If they're using single-use plastic, take a look at that. What are they using it for? Where is it ending up? Or do you have a recycling system on campus? Are there ways to reduce that plastic use? So I would say, try to see your school, your home. If you're involved in sports or community events or anything like that, those are all great places to look at to see how you and the people around you are using plastic, and then what could be better alternatives for doing that. And then pick something that you're passionate about. So if something at a sporting event is catching your attention and people are throwing plastic away or using plastic in a way that's not supposed to be used, then that might be a project for you to pick up. But it's whatever interests you and your group, basically to go with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So sum it up, start at home,
Yes.
follow your interests,
Start small.
start small.
Yeah.
One last question here. Are there any last tips that you'd like to share with our campaign teams?
Just stay passionate, stay organized, collaborate, and make sure that you communicate with one another. That's always a really great thing in playing a role as a team, to be team players, to always contribute to that team effort, and just go with it, make a difference. That's the big thing. We need the youth to actually take the initiative.
Absolutely. It really takes a collective effort.
Does, yes.
We know that from our spring campaign, we had almost 100 schools registered, and collectively they diverted 440 tons of waste.
That's wonderful.
So it might be just one straw
Yes.
today, but collectively it really makes a
Yes,
big
yes.
impact.
Yes, exactly.
And to your point about the 3 R's, also we know that only 6% of recyclable materials is actually recycled.
Right.
So sometimes we have to look at the reduce and the reuse more than
Right.
the recycle.
Exactly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much to all of our eco leaders. Thank you, Dr. Kazempour.
Sure.
Thank you to Penn State Berks for taking the time to share her tips with our campaign teams. If you have any questions for our expert, feel free to get in touch with us. Email your Grades of Green mentor, and we will see you at the next webinar for Phase 2.